Hello everyone and welcome to the first episode of Retrogears, the show about retro gaming, whether it be about previous console generations, handhelds, tabletops or whatever else that tickles my interest. Recently, when visiting a local flea market, I stumbled upon a boxed Pac-Man tabletop game. Now, I'm not really a collector, but I just had to buy this one, since I really do enjoy the design, the artwork, and of course the nostalgia associated with these old games. And I got it for the ridiculously low price of about €2, so I couldn't say no. Usually these games will sell for somewhere between $40, $50 up to $100 on eBay, sometimes more, sometimes less, depending on condition and if it's boxed and such. And as you can see, the box doesn't look that hot, it's pretty beat up. But the actual game is in pretty good condition. And it looks like a mini arcade cabinet complete with 2 joysticks, side art, marquee and whatnot. It just looks awesome. I'm just gonna let the pictures speak for themselves here. This tabletop was manufactured by Coleco in 1981, an American company that was founded already back in 1932 and was then known as the Connecticut Leather Company. I've always wondered what Coleco stood for, now I know, I guess. And quite unsurprisingly, they initially manufactured leather products. And then for some reason or other, they decided to enter the video game market in 1976 with the release of the Telstar line of video game consoles. They are also very well known for their ColecoVision game console released in 1982. Now, this tabletop is actually officially licensed by Midway, the company that had the license to distribute the Pac-Man arcade game in the United States, so it's not one of the many Pac-Man clones of varying quality that was released back in the early 80s. Pac-Man the arcade game was designed by Toru Iwatani and developed by Namco, and was released in 1980. It was a huge success and was of course followed by a ton of clones and bootlegs. And who can forget the absolutely abysmal Atari 2600 version? I actually think this game is far worse than E.T., and yes, you can quote me on that. And interesting to note is the sound effects are actually worse in the 2600 version compared to this tabletop. But I digress, sorry, let's get back to the subject at hand. Coleco released 6 other similar tabletop models in the early 80s, all based on real arcade games. They were Saxon, Frogger, Galaxian, Donkey Kong, Donkey Kong Jr., Mrs. Pac-Man, and of course this one, Pac-Man. Now, I have never actually seen any of these before in real life, and as a kid I don't remember any friends that owned any of these. I don't even remember seeing them in toy stores or in toy catalogs. I do, however, remember seeing Nintendo's tabletops as a kid and wanting them real badly. And of course not getting them because my parents thought they were too expensive and I really couldn't convince them of otherwise. So I don't think the Coleco tabletops were very common in Sweden at all, but there is a Swedish manual included with this one. It doesn't look like they put very much work into it though. It's typed on a typewriter from the Dark Ages and it looks like it's been photocopied in a dark and damp cellar. And the designer must have loved underlining text because it's full of it, making it pretty annoying to read. The American manual looks much better and is properly printed. I love what it says here on the box. Plays, sounds and scores like the real Pac-Man arcade game. Now, scores? I don't know, I was really rubbish at Pac-Man as a kid, not much better today, so I really can't comment about the scoring. Plays like? Alright, fair enough, it's Pac-Man. But sounds like? No, I don't think so. I seem to remember the arcade machine making a distinctive wacka 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 sound. Now, this is maybe not the most soothing sound in the world, but it certainly didn't sound like this. I can see many parents back in the 80s woefully regretting buying this thing and having to suffer this eternal racket as their kids happily try to improve their high score. There's no volume control or any way to mute the sound, unless you tear it open and rip the cables out of the speaker, which becomes more and more of an attractive option as your ear slowly starts to bleed. The game has 2 skill levels and 3 different game types. Besides the standard Pac-Man game, you also get Eat and Run, where you start in the ghost base in the middle and then need to get as many of the 4 power pills as possible and then return to the base to get your points. And there's also head-to-head where you can play simultaneously with a friend, which I think is pretty unique for this type of game. I don't think I've ever seen that, and I'm trying to show you the head-to-head mode here, but I'm failing pretty badly since I'm playing from behind the camera with both hands, desperately trying to not knock over my lights or tripod. The game uses a VFD type display. Not quite sure what that means, but it stands for Vacuum Fluorescent Display. And it's bright and crispy with no flickering. The flickering you see in the video is my camera's fault. The designers have been pretty clever when they did the graphics for this game. The eyes of the ghosts are also the pills that Pac-Man eat, and the Pac-Man sprite, or whatever you want to call it, is, well, I suppose the brain of the ghosts, which is also used to indicate when a ghost is edible or not after you eat a power pill. If you can see the Pac-Man inside the ghost, you can't eat it. Pretty clever stuff. If you look at the bottom of the game, you will find the battery cover with some short operating instructions glued to it. Pretty clever, if you should lose the manual, which of course most kids tend to do. And if you remove the cover, you will find the battery compartment. And this beast takes 4 C batteries to power it. And for some reason I could not get the first batteries I had to fit. I had to buy a different brand, and even then it was a bit of a challenge getting them in there. Maybe it's part of the game experience, or maybe batteries have grown slightly in size in recent years. I don't know, it's pretty weird. There's also a connector on the back that I assume is used to hook up a AC adapter to the game. Coleco released a specific one called Coleco Perma Power that supported their entire line of tabletop games, including some of their other games as well. I am sure you can find one on eBay if you'd like for a small fortune, but it is also possible to use a generic adapter. According to handheldmuseum.com, you will need a 9V DC 100mA adapter and the center pole need to be positive polarity. But be careful when doing this, as you can fry the game if you get the polarity or voltage wrong. So, is it any fun to play then? Well, besides the nostalgia factor, the game does feel its age, so to say, but that can be said of course for most handheld tabletops from the 80s. It is Pac-Man, a maze that looks reasonably like the arcade one, 4 ghosts, 4 power pills and teleport tunnels. Only thing missing is the fruit pretty much. It plays okay, if you can stand the sound effects that is. The joysticks feels a bit stiff, but I think that's because they are in dire need of cleaning. since the right one actually feels a bit more responsive. I do, however, remember owning a smaller handheld Pac-Man clone as a kid that was more enjoyable to play than this one, and the sound effects didn't slowly drive you insane either. But maybe that's just me remembering it through rose-tinted nostalgia glasses. I actually still have it somewhere, so maybe I will make a video about it, we will see. At any rate, this tabletop will look really nice on display on your shelf. And before we end the video, I would just like to give out a big shout out and thank you to Rick over at handheldmuseum.com for letting me use his pictures of the other Coleco tabletop games and some other pictures as well. Thank you very much, Rick. Don't forget to check out his website. I will put a link in the description. And with that, I will say thank you for watching. Don't forget to comment, subscribe and all that stuff, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.